Hello YouTubers, this is Cessnaace back again with another video. Recently I received a private message from someone asking me, do I collect CED video discs? And the answer to that question is yes, in addition to several other formats. Now the CED video disc format, or capacitance electronic disc system, was developed by RCA over a period of approximately 17 years. Now, you might ask, why did RCA release their CED video discs in color-coded caddies? Well, this is something that harkens back to the mid to late 1940s. RCA was the company that developed the 7-inch vinyl single. Columbia Records invented the LP. Back then, RCA had the idea of color coding the vinyl to match the specific genre the release was for. For example, with classical and operatic music they used red vinyl. But this didn't catch on, and RCA was quick to abandon it, although there were continued releases using various colors of vinyl. Anyway, I have before me several CEDs. Now, the CED format was released in only two places, the US and the UK. There weren't many UK releases, but there were approximately 1,700 US releases. Although there were a lot of two-disc releases in the US, and I don't believe there were any in the UK. This is because in the US, NTSC reigned, and with NTSC they could only fit an hour. Well, by 1983, that was up to 63 minutes of video and audio per side. With PAL, 75 minutes. So you really didn't need that many two-disc releases with movies and PAL. Okay. Now, I collect LaserDiscs as well, and something I have noticed is that while there were a lot of Filmation titles released on CED, I have yet to find any on LaserDisc. In comparison, there were a lot of Hanna-Barbera releases on LaserDisc, but I haven't found any on CED. That just might be my fortune or misfortune, depending on your point of view. Now, there were stores that rented these out. I know because I used to go to one back in the day. When the format premiered in 1981, I bought an RCA player, and then subsequently I got a player from Hitachi, which I liked a lot better. Now, if you live in the UK and you want access to the rather large number of NTSC releases, your best option is to get a player with a model number SJT or SKT. Those models were the only ones that could play both at 60 Hertz and 50 Hertz. You still need a step-down converter for the power and a dual standard television. But those are the only two models that are capable of switching back and forth between 50 Hertz and 60 Hertz. Now, if you want to know, and I'm a collector mainly for the Caddies now, if you want to know which ones were originally offered at a rental store and which ones have only been owned by private collectors, one tip I might give you is to look at the spine of the label. You probably can't make it out because of my autofocus not cooperating, but there is text there, the release number and the title. Now, if it's a rental copy, generally rental stores kept them like this, and you thumbed through them. And that would cause a lot of wear on the spine, whereas private collectors tended to keep them stored like a book on a shelf, although what I would recommend is solid oak, because these are heavier than LaserDisc. I use solid oak for my LaserDiscs as well, 2-inch thick solid oak. Now, color coding of the caddies. RCA used white for releases that had mono audio. For releases that had stereo audio, they used blue caddies. Believe it or not, the format launched in '81 without being able to play in stereo, whereas the LaserDisc format came out in '78 and it was capable of stereo day one. But anyway, what's really strange about it is music titles on CED outsold music titles on LaserDisc. Now, it's possible to find two different releases of quite a few movies because RCA re-released some that they had released in mono in stereo, and there were some that Fox had licensed out to RCA that RCA released, and then subsequently CBS Fox Video released them. This is one, though, that I don't think had a corresponding RCA release. Notice chapter number, duration, and title. Now, the audio is analog, but they use the same noise reduction system that was used with LaserDiscs on their analog soundtracks. Now, later on, LaserDiscs would have digital as well, but in the US they continued to offer analog soundtracks on LaserDiscs in addition to digital, and the analog were encoded with CX noise reduction, which had been invented by CBS Laboratories. So during the LaserDisc and CED era, I guess they were making a lot of money that way. Now, for limited edition and interactive titles, they used black caddies. This one is black because it's a limited edition, a very limited edition. I have two of the releases from this series. The entire series was also released on LaserDisc and on VHS and on Betamax. Now, later, when CED started having a bad reputation for being problematic as far as skipping was concerned, Disney tried to say, well, he didn't have anything to do with that format. Kind of hard to say that when there were so many Disney releases on CED. Like this. Insert other end in player. Okay. This one is another one that's stereo. I wanted to show it to you just 'cause. There are actually people who collect the caddies so that they can hang them. Of course, they take the discs out first, but I don't do that. Now, originally RCA identified their releases as being from RCA Select Division VideoDiscs, but then later on they changed to simply CED VideoDisc. Now, I don't have any, but they also used gray caddies. Gray caddies were for industrial releases. How to rebuild a Chevy engine, that sort of thing. Shazam! It says up there in bold print, Family Home Entertainment. Down here, MGM UA Home Video. But then in smaller print, distributed by. I guess I should have pulled one. I do have some CEDs that are interactive. They say that they're banded. That I believe it was Billy Joel release. It's in a blue caddy, but it's banded. If it were a LaserDisc, it would say chapter encoded. And they do list them as chapters, but that's what they refer to as banding. Okay, now I paid a visit to the LaserDisc database just to see what all I have there. I have 29 VHDs. That was a format that was released only in Japan. It was a capacitance disc system as well, but vastly superior to CEDs. I have yet to purchase a VHD that skips. This primarily has to do with the fact that the stylus head is flat and uses 1/10 of the downward pressure as is used with CEDs. If I have 29 VHDs, 38 CEDs, and 1,555 LaserDiscs. Of all my releases, 64 are still sealed, and 63 are not sealed but still have the original shrink wrap on them. And I have 19 DiscoVision releases. DiscoVision was the first company to release LaserDiscs, and they were owned by MCA. Alright. Within my collection at the LaserDisc database, with all three formats that I just mentioned, I have 68 collection exclusives. That means I'm the only one at the LaserDisc database that has those releases. I have added 293 titles to the LaserDisc database, and I have updated, well, so far, of the ones that I've submitted for update, and that generally means I've added fields like the publisher or the original retail price or the number of chapters, that sort of thing. 97% of the ones I have submitted have been validated so far, for a total of 759. Now, of my releases, all three formats, one was released in Germany, 1 Singapore, 5 the UK, 8 Hong Kong, 20 the Netherlands, 94 Japan, and 1,493 USA. Now, one of the fields they have is original retail price, although not all of the releases that they have in their database have that filled in yet. But going by that, the total original retail price of the discs in my collection there, if I had paid full price, $52,657.36, and that's not counting the foreign releases. Now, I have a couple of rare titles with LaserDiscs. For example, I have a pressing from the Netherlands. All LaserDiscs had a test pressing, but this test pressing was for a release that was subsequently canceled before it got past the test pressing stage, and mine is numbered 18. The film was Steven Spielberg's 1941. And I also have a couple that were planned releases for the Netherlands. They went so far as to have a handful made in Japan by Caddy, and then they canceled the release before the jacket art was done. So those came in the original blank white jackets that were shipped in from Caddy, who manufactured them. I have one disc, one only, from DMI Disctronics. They only made 30-something LaserDisc titles, I believe. I have one, and it was the very first Wheeler and Woolsey comedy that I bought, Peacherino from 1931, and it is gorgeous. The picture and sound is wonderful. I wish they had made more LaserDiscs. Since the last time I visited the LaserDisc database, they have added another manufacturer, SKC Korea. So far they have only been credited with 3 releases, 3 in Korea. But I thought I would answer that question. Now maybe in a future video I will get to these, which are my Commodore 64 books. Until next time, stay awesome.